The Waterworks is the premier birdwatching spot in the Hobart area. People talk about the mountain and going up the mountain to see birds, but the Waterworks is important because it encompasses 12 or 13 different environments in a very, very small space. And on the mountain, I mean, the whole mountain will incorporate those environments, but you'll have to travel quite a distance to find them. Here, they're all in a very small space. For instance, you have two types of woodland here. You have a wet woodland on this side that faces the ocean, faces south, and is generally in the shadow of the sun, so it doesn't get a lot of heat, doesn't get a lot of rain, so you get more wet forest species here, like stringy bark. On this side, it's a rocky soil that faces the sun, gets sun all day long, and so you get plants, gums, eucalypts that prefer a drier soil, and in turn certain bird species prefer different types of trees. So the dry eucalypts would attract, say, satin flycatchers and certain honey eaters that like dry forests. This is a very, very important place in the history of Hobart. In 1836, Charles Darwin called into Hobart Port on the voyage of the Beagle. It was a voyage that gave rise to his theory of evolution. But Charles Darwin wasn't interested in the general nature as such, or wildlife. Charles Darwin actually was a geologist, fascinated by rocks. And while he was in Hobart, he was more interested in studying the rocks and the strata and rock formations than he was in studying the birds, plants and mammals. And this track here actually is the old Huon Packhorse Trail that leads into the Huon Valley. And Darwin learnt that it gave access to the mountain top. So he got a guide and came along here. And during the walk, the day-long walk, he collected a great deal of rock specimens. In fact, he collected so many that he had to dump a lot on the mountainsides because they were too heavy to bring back to the ship. There are people, it's almost like Darwin's holy grail. People go up here in search of Darwin's pile of rocks, but no doubt they'll never find them. Birdwatchers, when I grew up many, many years ago, it was always considered a nerdy thing, a sort of sissy. In England we go, oh, you're a sissy, you like birds, you like butterflies. But what's happened to birdwatching in the last 30 years or so is the Americans got interested and the Americans turned it into a sport. So birdwatching in America is considered a sport, and if you look at Sports Illustrated magazine in America, they have a column on birdwatching. It's a sport. But the way Americans are very competitive. The way they do it is people go out and they have challenges to see how many birds you could spot, and they do a checklist at the end of the day, and they have prizes for the team or the person that's seen the most birds. A bit like fishing, So they regard it as a sport, like fishing, but that's really good because I don't mind if it's got a sporting aspect to it. I don't mind, fishermen, people go out fishing, and it gets them outside and it gets them interested in the marine environment. Personally, I'm not into the competitive nature of birdwatching. I'm more into just taking a leisurely stroll and seeing what's about. I'm the sort of, I'm a fisherman who will go fishing and be quite happy not to catch anything. It's just being out there and doing it.